Okay, it seems we are live.
Good evening, everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the Historic Districts Review Board to order. Today we are July the 12th, 2022. Melissa, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Rios.
Here.
Vice Chair Katz.
I thought he was going to be on Zoom. Carly, do you know anything about that?
He is working on attending Zoom, so we may see him pop in just a minute.
Okay, thank you. Member Beachside.
Excused.
Member Bienvenue.
Here.
Member Guida.
Here.
Member Larson.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Any changes to the agenda?
Yes. Madam Chair, we have a couple changes tonight. We have a postponement for the staff communication, or we're removing it at least from this agenda for tonight. That's item number 1 under staff communications. That's the South Guadalupe Street, West Plaza, and various other locations for the banners. And then we are also postponing the third item under new business. That would be the case 2022-005470 HDRB, 57 Old Santa Fe Trail to a date certain. The applicant alerted us yesterday that they wanted to postpone.
Thank you very much. Are there any further changes? Not so. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it's amended.
Guida moves to approve as amended.
Larson seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue.
Yes.
Member Guida.
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
And is Vice Chair Katz present yet? Okay, Madam Chair, the motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. We have minutes of June the 28th, 2022. Do we have any changes to those? Member Bienvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 23, fourth full paragraph, third sentence, the word accredited should be changed to accretive, A-C-C-R-E-T-I-V-E, and that's the only change I have.
Thank you. Melissa, I have 3 simple little changes, and the first 2 are on page 10, paragraph 3, where it says, Chair Rios asked Ms. Bordegaray what evidence she had in reference to the date, and after date, please add date of the large picture window, period. And then on that same page, paragraph 5, where it says, Chair Rios said she, and it should not be she, it should be Ms. Bordegaray, because it sounds like it's me, but it's really Ms. Bordegaray. And on page 24, paragraph 3, change the word long-term to long-time. And that's all I have. If there are no further changes, I will entertain a motion to this.
Larson moves to approve the minutes as submitted. And
Bienvenue seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue.
Yes.
Member Guida.
Abstain.
Member Larson.
yes.
And the motion has been approved.
Thank you. We have 5 findings of fact and conclusions of law. Any changes to any of these? It appears there are no changes. Is there a motion to approve these?
Larson moves to approve the findings and fact and conclusions of law as submitted.
Bienvenue seconds.
And may we have a roll call vote?
Yes, Member Bienvenue.
Yes.
Member Guida.
Abstain.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. Any matters from the public at this time? Anyone wishing to speak, not for your specific case, but anything else? It appears not. Well,
Madam Chair, I believe we have Stephanie Benenato.
okay.
I'm going to ask IT in the back to help allow Stephanie Benenato to speak from the attendees.
Are they going to let us know?
Right. I'm not able to promote one of our attendees to speak from the Zoom link.
Stephanie, if you can hear me, we're trying to get you on.
Stephanie, would you unmute yourself, please?
We had a similar problem last week. Did the IT people work on this?
Yes, I think we just may need to change a hosting capability. Let me check just one thing. I'm also trying to get Member Katz, Madam Chair, on the line to make sure he's working on it. So, well, if we could take a moment for that. I'm sorry for the delay.
Your patience, please. So, Chair, we're going to have public comment from Stephanie Benanato.
Should I go ahead, Carly? Stephanie, can you mute your Zoom, please?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, let me get here. Sorry, second, let me get back.
Okay, I think you can hear me now. Is that right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. I understand that the item is postponed on the banners, but I just want to say that I am opposed to administrative approval of the banners. I don't know what you've done for the Quattro Centennial, the Centennial, when La Fonda came in front of you, but I think that there needs to be discussion, like a lot of details, like are all 350 going to be up? How many per street? There's a lot of details that I think the board and the public should be able to comment on before it gets administratively approved. And then the other thing I would like to bring to your attention, and I know it's outside your purview, but I'm really hoping that since you all are hopefully involved in the historic preservation community, that you might either know somebody or know somebody who knows somebody who could help preserve the floor at La Posada in the library of the Staub House. It is literally falling apart, and I do tours in there, and every time I've gone in recently, it is more damaged. And, it was actually perfect except for a lot of shellac until about 20 years ago, and it's been abused. And I don't know why Marriott is just letting it go to hell, but they are. And so I'm just wondering if there's anybody on this board who knows somebody, or a big corporate stockholder, or people who know people, or, for example, Frank and John, who are part of the old Santa Fe Association. Maybe they can get their membership or somebody there to speak to the management there to do something about this floor before it's all going to have to be pulled up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Anybody in this room? It appears not. Staff communications, anything further? The issue regarding the banners will not be heard this evening. And is there anything else?
Yes, Madam Chair, we also have an introduction of our new Assistant Director for Land Use, Heather Lamboy, and I'm just going to ask her to come to the podium and just introduce herself.
Thank you. Good evening, Heather. Will you speak right into, get that mic closer to you, and everyone in the audience, if you're going to speak this evening, get that mic close to you, because then we can't hear. And it's better for the recorder, too, for the stenographer.
Would it help if I turned on the mic?
Oh, that would be very
I
helpful.
talk very loud, so that's why I do that. So, good evening. It's really nice to be back in Santa Fe. Back in the 1990s, I was a historic district's case planner for the city of Santa Fe, and that was my first job out of graduate school in community regional planning. And so that became a passion of mine. Life led me away, but I came back in the 2000s as a case planner as a senior planner for the current planning division. And at that time, I had the opportunity to work on some historic districts cases with reference to the St. John's College and some of the other cases. And it was really an honor to be back and involved in historic preservation, and I think that is a theme that we need to have for our entire staff in planning and land use, is to just be sure that people understand the importance of historic preservation and how it really helps to define our town as some place that is unique and special. So I look forward to working with not only you, but also the community, and if there's any concerns or questions that you need to refer to me directly, please feel free to do so. Carly is an amazing leader, and so I know that we'll be working together to also address zoning code regulations. The zoning code update is coming your way, and so, as well as the general plan updates. So we expect that you and members of the historic, the community will be involved in dialogue as an essential stakeholder to that process. So thank you, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Heather. We look forward to working with you, and I'm glad that you're back in Santa Fe. Thanks. Other people like you, too. I must know about you. So we're going to move on to old business. Under old business, we have 4 cases, and the first case is Angela's. It's contributing. What? Oh, yes, Frank, sorry.
I wanted to offer an update on 2 matters that are on appeal from the Historic District Review Board. There is a matter of 1160 Camino de Cruz Blanca, which is the approval of the cellular tower at St. John's College. The Neighborhood Association appealed that one. Mr. Dirkovich was the appellant on that. That has been submitted to the district court. There's a briefing schedule pursuant to Rule 1-074 of the rules controlling appeals from a land court of district court. The appellants have submitted their brief. The City of Santa Fe submitted its response brief. The appellants submitted a reply brief to our response brief. And after that, we submit a motion to Judge Matthew, who is going to hear this case, that the briefing has been finalized. That is to say that is the conclusion of the briefing. Neither side asked for an oral argument, and our concern was that would just delay matters more. So at this time, we're just waiting for an opinion from the district court on that appeal. And then recently, there has been a verified appeal petition submitted with respect to the board's decision regarding the property at 330 Don Cubero Place. And that was a matter that was heard by the HDRB on May 24th, 2022. Jason Kluk, our land use director, is reviewing that to determine whether there is an adequate assertion of a basis, after which the city attorney's office will review it. It does appear it was submitted in a timely manner, but we're just doing a review to determine whether or not it complies with all the appellate rules with respect to decisions of the HDRB.
And the 330 Don Cubero, that's being appealed to the city council, right? It's at the city council level?
Yes, the appeal is from the land use board or the HDRB to the governing body. And then the city attorney's office has to, after a conversation with my boss, Ms. McSherry, will decide whether we recommend that the governing body actually weigh the case on its merits or whether the appeal should be rejected without a hearing on its merits.
Thank you, Frank, for those 2 updates.
Madam Chair, while Angela is pulling up her case, Member Katz has raised his hand.
I just couldn't hear, and now it's okay, thanks.
Great, we can hear you very well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Harley, will you please assist me when Member Katz wants to speak? Thanks. It appears like that's frozen. Apologies, everyone. Oh, gosh. There we go.
Testing. Good evening, board, members of the public, and applicants. Thank you for your patience in getting our technology set up. The subject property is 1520 Canyon Road. is contributing, and at the May 12th meeting, the Historic Districts Review Board designated that the east facade primary, except for the east end. That's the east end that jogs back a little with the aluminum window. The subject of tonight's case is a replacement of that window, which is on the red, within the red circle. North is up. I'll briefly review. It's the history of this territorial revival, vernacular style, 1,400 square foot building. Its east elevation garage appears mid-century ranch style, has a shed roof, overhangs, and shallow but wide aluminum sliding windows. The north elevation, try to get to a better, nope, that was it. We're going to look at the pictures because the drawings are difficult to make out. The north elevation, which is the front, features a 3-paned large picture window at its center and a double set of 3/1 double-hung wood windows on its west end. The converted garage on the east portion features a 3-paned wide, shallow aluminum window. Other horizontal sliding aluminum windows were added to the east elevations in 1965. A utility room was added to the south elevation in 1980, and the 396 square foot carport was built in 1995, also on the south elevation. 3 windows are arranged symmetrically in a row on the west elevation. And I need to correct that the entire east elevation, it's the north elevation that is the front of the house, not the east. And the other primary facade designated primary was the west facade. The applicant proposes to replace the 3-panel aluminum slider window with a double 3/1 true divided light window to match the window pattern of the historic windows on the west end of this primary facade, of this north primary facade. The new window will match the replacement windows in color, which of the windows that were approved at May 12th, which is Pella window color is summer sage. And the new window will be aluminum clad. And staff recommends approval of the project, finding that the application complies with the downtown and east side standards and the general design standards. And with that, I stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions? I'll just repeat that it's the north and the west that are primary, and this applicant is just wanting to replace one window, which will be a 3/1 on the north facade, correct?
Correct.
So no questions for Angela at this time, so I will ask the applicant or applicants to come forward and get sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Molly Pruitt, 747 Old Las Vegas Highway.
Good evening. You have the floor. What do you have to tell us? Anything further?
No, I think Angela said it quite well. We just want to, from the previous meeting, you all kind of said, hey, think about making it look more similar to that west elevation, and the owners like that idea. So that's what we're proposing. It will be 10 inches smaller. That is only because that garage header is much lower. You can see that in the photograph where the garage portion actually comes down in the ceiling height. So we're going to keep the same proportion, but it will be 10 inches smaller, both height and width.
Any questions for Ms. Pruitt at this? Is there no questions? Anyone from the audience wishing to speak, or anyone on Zoom wishing to speak in reference to this project? Carly, if you will let me know yes or no.
Chair, thank you for the reminder. I see no hands.
So no one wishes to make any comments in reference to this or has questions, so I will entertain a motion. Board members.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. In case 2022-005476 HDRB 1520 Canyon Road, I move that the board approve the project as submitted.
Is there a second?
Bienvenue seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you, Ms. Pruitt, and sorry, everybody, for the delay. We're going to move on to the next case under old business, which is located at 1204 Canyon Road. And this is also Angela's case.
Chair, members of the board, this case, 2022-0054, 5346 at 1204 Canyon Road, was not reviewed by the zoning staff for the revisions made to the approved case. So I would like to request that either it be postponed, or if the board wishes to take up the case, you may do so.
So anything having to do with zoning has not been thoroughly addressed or hasn't been addressed at all?
No, this was a previous case approved in 2020, and the case before you is for revisions to that approval, and the revisions are quite significant, and the preliminary zoning review was not updated for the revised footprint.
And zoning has to review prior to us reviewing, correct?
It's a concurrent process, but it has to be reviewed and signed off. It's a preliminary review at the same time that we're preparing the case.
Okay. Carly, sorry.
It is an application requirement that they go through preliminary zoning review and get that approval in order to have a complete packet. And so when a design changes significantly or enough that we may be held up in permit and then require design changes down the road due to underlying zoning requirements, it creates those design changes that then have to come back to the board. So when we were out on the field trip today, and Angela and I had a further discussion about the case, it was realized that this review had not been reevaluated, and it had significant changes to the case.
Board members, do you have any questions or comments? Yes, Member Bienvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would this need to be postponed to a date certain or not? Angela?
That is my understanding. Member Bienvenue.
What date would be proposed by staff?
An August meeting date, August 9th.
If we have the possibility of getting it on the July 26th, we should try for it. If we're only lacking the preliminary zoning review, we may be able to get that done in time since it's just an update. So, Angela, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that would be my suggestion.
So would the motion need to be framed, could it be framed as vaguely as to the next available date as opposed to an actual date being given in the motion?
I believe we have to set it for an actual date, but I do need to ask. My schedule shows that July 26th.
We would want to consider it on July 26th. While we can have administrative matters on that date, we've had so many delays due to staffing issues that we will be hearing several cases, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you. I would make a motion then.
Please do.
In case number 2022-005346, HDRB 1204 Canyon Road, I would move that this matter be postponed to the July, was it 26th, meeting date.
Wait seconds.
And would you indicate why, please?
For zoning review.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. For the applicants for this particular case here, if so, please raise your hand. Did you hear the reasons why the case is being postponed? Well, it has not,
Madam Chair, I believe if he's going to be speaking, he needs to be sworn in, or,
I was just trying to indicate that the reason that it was being postponed, was for it to run more smoothly because it has to go through zoning. And I just simply wanted to apologize to you in a way because you already came here and you were thinking that your case was going to be heard, and we also just heard that it could not be heard because zoning has not looked at the application. Okay? If you're going to speak, you need to come forward, please.
please raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Yes, my name's Joseph. Yes, and, you know, we applied for this in October. We finally got the permit in October 2020. But what we need they need to pinpoint Angela, whoever, exactly everything they want from us, because it's too broad. They like, I think they mentioned some window that they had never mentioned before. We've been back and forth. It's costing me money. You know, they put me on a hold for 4 months because in the inside, first Angela had said, it's okay, you can work inside, and they said, no, you can't work inside because the outside you had some changes. We had changes because P&M, their wires were real close to the garage we were going to make, and P&M said, no, you cannot make it there. Then we had some problems in the back because that property has rocks, like big rocks. We had a big backhoe. We couldn't even dig. Then the prior owners, they let and this was like 50 years ago, they must have let the neighbor in the back connect their store, because their store, the lines were supposed to go straight into the street. Somehow, 50 years ago, they had some problems, and they put them right in front of the house. So we had like 3 big issues that delayed us. But the thing is that, you know, with COVID, there's nobody answers the phone. Nobody's here. We can't even come. It has delayed us, and I just can't afford for any more delays. And the thing is that please pinpoint, you need this, and this, and not just whatever. I would really appreciate that so we can, you know, get this going smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I know that it can be very frustrating. The process can be very frustrating. So I feel for you, but I guess it's your husband, Fred,
Yeah.
that indicated that you had come before this board many times. In reference to revisions, you have never, to my knowledge,
No, not,
come before this board.
no, I never did.
But
No.
we do have to follow the rules, and sometimes I know it's difficult, and as I said, it can be very frustrating. So hopefully we can resolve, you can go back to the city and get that resolved with zoning,
Yes.
and then come back to us. July 26th is not that far away.
No, it's not, and that's fine, but as long as they tell us exactly, you need this, and not, well, whatever, because it's like, we're in a maze, they confuse us sometimes, so, I don't know, but I would appreciate it, and then we'll see you, I guess, July 26th.
Yes, you need to indicate, when you go, you need to indicate that. Please let us know everything that we're supposed to do and know about this
Yes,
particular case.
all right.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
That the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Gerald Valdez. I live in, I'm sorry. My name is Gerald Valdez. I live 11 Ranch Road, Cedar Crest, New Mexico. I'm still not sure of what the reason is. Zoning has to get a hold of it and look over it. Is that correct?
There are certain requirements that need to be met with every application, and it has to go through zoning prior to coming here. Why zoning? Why they put it on the
That's my
agenda
question.
prior to it being here, I'm not really quite sure.
Yeah.
But perhaps Carly can answer that.
Well, it's been a hodgepodge of excuses and reasons why we can't have this meeting. It was scheduled I don't know how many times, and all this time that you guys have, why didn't it go through the zoning committee? Like why do we have to be, at a disadvantage all the time? Why is it our reasoning for jumping on the board for lack of, what can I say, the city not really addressing these issues? And here we are back again. Here we got to come back again. This has been about the 5th time I've been here concerning this project, and it's getting old. It's getting really old.
Well, let's see if we can move it
I
up.
don't know what the zoning has to do. They had all this time. This project has been since 2020. It was approved, and unfortunately, there was circumstances beyond our control that caused these revisions to be made. Okay, number one was the sewer that Mrs. Lucero was speaking about. The sewer line wasn't even going straight into Canyon Road. It made a turn into her sewer. And if the excavator hadn't broken that pipe, we'd have never found that out, and it would have been a bigger mess in our hands. So that happened, and then P&M didn't allow us to put the garage where it was approved because of an anchor to this ugly pole that's there. We should put a sign on that pole, historic pole of Santa Fe, can't be removed. But anyway, and then bedrock. Okay, we did an extensive amount of excavating for that retaining wall, and we hit some bedrock, and the contractor didn't feel comfortable going as planned, so they changed. And because I live in Cedar Crest and the project's here, it was hard to communicate. But with that said, all these issues, all these delays, I don't know what the city's doing. Every time we call, COVID, couldn't talk to nobody. You couldn't, this is the first meeting that you guys have had, and this COVID is I still see some people with masks, and I respect that, but come on, people, I couldn't get a hold of any of the planners because they're working out of the home. It was a mess. It was a mess trying to get a hold of somebody. And that's all I can say right now. Going back home, kind of very disappointing. Still don't know the reason why we're not being heard tonight.
Well, it was stated, sir, but I can hear your frustration and Mrs. Lucetto's frustration. So hopefully, let's try to move forward and make this smoother, and hopefully the city will help do its part. And then we'll see you on July 26th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next case is Carly's case. It's located at 342 Plaza Valentine.
Good evening, board members. Madam Chair.
Sure. I don't. Ask.
All right, this is case number 2022-005161 HDRB, located at 342 Plaza Ballantyne, and it is contributing to the Downtown Eastside Historic District. And you may remember this case from April, when primary facades were designated. I've taken a few areas, so the west elevation, the south section of that west elevation, so these photographs are including some of these primary facades here. And so, because this is a remodel case, that is one of the very important factors. This property contains several structures. We are looking at a house that was built in very much vernacular fashion. The casita, just located south. The portal, which is not pictured here, but there's no proposed work to tonight, so I did not add it to the photographs of the presentation. We've got the carport on those top images, contributing wall, and the casita. The last slide here is photographs of the main house. The main house, as you may remember, is a kind of modified L shape. With the older piece is the south end, and it grew up and out to the right. And so that portal that was just mentioned is right here on the more west portion of the property. We are also, you can see the casita down in the southwest end, and then the carport here. Here is that contributing wall. All of those, the applicant outlined all of those contributing or primary facades in red very nicely for us tonight. So those are here. Let's see, we are looking at now the site plan, and you can see the main additions that are being proposed tonight to this house are this very discrete north end feature here. And then we will see additions that kind of infill that little U shape there, and then a portal addition. And further alterations around this site, and there are exceptions requested for mostly this area right here. There's an addition, a small portal added to the carport there, a little addition on the back there of the carport. And then two additions that are set back each by 10 feet onto the casita. And to make it a little bit easier on the eye, here are the existing and proposed plans side by side. And a little enlargement of the other two structures. This is only the proposed enlargement because the, excuse me, those darkened walls are the additions, so or the areas that are being modified. So it's a little bit more clear there. Okay. So starting from north going south, we're looking at the north elevation and the proposed changes there. And you can see on that right part, that's the discrete addition. Here is the east facade. Up top, we can see it with the contributing wall in front, and you can see the added gate there next to some the historic features, these little gates, and then wooden panel architectural features there. Behind that facade, behind the gate rather, so what we're looking at right here is behind this gate feature. And so this is one of the additions to the primary facade. There's an addition to a primary facade on the south elevation here with a portal, and then you can see the dashed original window openings, and then the new door openings that are proposed, with a gate proposed to attach to the house here. And then we're looking at another primary facade on the west elevation right here with changes to the openings. New opening on the right side, infill to part of the door there, and an increased height. The increased height was significant enough that we discussed that that should be addressed in the exception criteria. And then these are the carport elevations for the addition to the little portal there. Excuse me. And then the west elevation to the carport. Okay. Here are images of the finishes and fixtures. So we're looking at the El Rey buckskin that closely matches the color of stucco that's there. The colonial white for the windows, doors, wood posts and beams. And then landscape material, portals, sidewalks, so brick materials, and then planter walls, the stacked Malsra stone. I wanted just to call attention to the itemized list. Tried to be very careful about this because there's so many changes to this proposed to this building. Very carefully itemize the list out in case one or all proposed are accepted or a portion are, so that it's clear. So that the motion can be a little bit extra clear. And then the exceptions are listed in that staff report as where they are applied. Now, staff did not find that all the exception criteria have been met, but the board may find that with more testimony that it complies, or they may find that with more testimony. Otherwise, we recommend the approval of the application. That the rest generally complies with the downtown and east side design standards, and D, the general design standards. And I can either take questions now or turn it over to the applicant, Madam Chair.
If you'll hold on just a little minute. So we are looking at a main house, we're looking at a casita, and we're also looking at a carport. And there are exceptions involved. Are the exceptions that are being, that are involved pertain to all three?
Excuse me. No, Madam Chair, they only pertain to the main house. And I should note that in the agenda, we do notice an exception for the change of replacement of historic windows. That one does not apply. When I revised the agenda, I forgot to remove that one, so that's why you do not see it in your staff report. So, but the exceptions are applied to the main house, and they are applied, they're being applied to the primary facade number 12, number 11, number 10, and then to the wall specifically for the gate alteration.
Carly, is it your opinion, with all the changes that are being proposed, that this home will still remain contributing? You did not agree with with all the exception criteria?
So in the responses to the exception criteria, I go into a conversation about designing for cohesion and designing that allows the vernacular to still be shown. That's where it would be up to the board to decide that. But it's a very difficult, if the exceptions were to be granted, based on the information that we have, it would be very difficult to say that it's really retaining its contributing status. It would be a long debate, I think. And so it would be very difficult to say yes.
Thank you, Carly. Any other clarification? Yes, Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Carly, can you briefly restate if you can, why the board chose the elevations that it did for primary facades on this house?
So part of the reason, and now I'm wishing I had included the minutes. But part of the reasons for the choice for primaries of this house was this is the older section, the south is the older. It had some unique features, being that the very narrowness of the doorways, those architectural features there. And there was a conversation about the mirroring of the plate glass windows and those openings within that south feature. So that applies to just the main house. I won't address the others because the remodel is not impacting those other primary facades. And then, of course, the contributing wall has several architectural features. It's also meets the age criteria as well.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you, Carly. Will the applicant or applicants please come forward and get sworn in?
Please raise your right hands.
Sorry.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimonies you're about to give are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And when you speak, please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Richard Martinez. My address is 925, P.O. Box 925, Santa Fe, New Mexico. First of all, I want to mention that the version that you're seeing as part of our application right now is the third design that we did. We started this case with Daniel, and I responded to his comments for the first submittal, and we did a second submittal. Yes. I met with Carly about it, and I took her suggestions into it. So the one that you're seeing is actually the third version of the house, and I think it's the best. If I can ask that certain drawings be pulled up, is that possible? I don't know how to. Yes. How would I know where drawings are? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, yeah, my packet would be great if I can just ask you, like, can you put the plan up? Can you put the primary facades? So if you could just start with the primary facades. No, just the primary facade drawing. Yeah. Of course. Okay. So, well, it's too large, but anyway. This is a drawing of the primary facades. And I've been coming before this board for 30 years now. And this is the first time that I have 10 facades on a house that are primary. And facades that go all the way around the house. As you can see, the main part of where I can actually redo or add to the house is primary facades. And so we had to have some impact on those. We tried as much as we could to reduce the amount of exceptions that we are asking for. There were some that we think are necessary. The design that we have for the exterior of the house, can you put the plan, my proposed plan, please? The proposed plan is trying to make some visual sense of this house. There are parts of the house that are in the territorial style, and there are parts of the house that are trying to be in the territorial style. They have brick coping, but there's a visual sort of hodgepodgeness to the house. The historic report says that it's a very unruly plan and elevations of the house. And so we're trying to strengthen the territorial style of the house, because that's what it's trying to be with the brick coping and things like that. There is windows all around the house that are non-historic. Some are white, most are blue, some are just stopped in glass, some are windows that were from, I don't know where they were from. There's various plans or versions of the windows. We're planning to have all of those replaced and to give a unity to the house. So we're proposing to replace all of the windows. The windows are determined to be non-historic. And when I say we're proposing to replace all the windows, I'm talking about the main house. We're not replacing the window on the gazebo. The house itself has some low ceilings. One of the ceilings on our drawings is actually labeled as 6'5" to the vigas, and there's a letter in your packet that shows somebody standing, Joseph standing in the house. It shows that the ceiling is right there, and so we're proposing that we raise the ceiling, and that's why we're raising the parapets on that south section of the house. We recognize that the house should not be any taller than what it is, and so we're only raising it to 11.6, which is the height that is currently on other sections of the house, and the allowable height that we could have raised it is, I think, 13 feet 2 inches. So we're almost 2 feet below what we're allowed to do. And I think you should recall or be aware the street in front of the house, the lane in front of the house, Plaza Ballantyne, is actually 2 feet above the house. So the effective height of the house from the lane is only 9 feet 6, because 2 feet of it is below the street that you can't see. One of our primary objectives in the remodel of the house is to make sense of the plan. The plan that exists right now is very disparate. The living room is at one end of the house. The kitchen is at the other end of the house. There's only one bedroom in the house. You have to go into a gate and go around the back of the house to enter. We're relocating the entry onto the street side of the house and putting a new gate through the historic wall. We're trying to make it so that it is quite clear where you enter the house, and that it's more visible. And I would think that having a gate in that wall, in the historic wall, that allows more visibility through the wall would be actually a benefit to the streetscape. We are keeping all of the elements of the historic wall, including the little garbage doors that are next to the gate, what we call the Hobbit gate. It's a very short gate next to ours. It hasn't been used for years. Both of these elements are below the level of the street. The street has been built up over time. The gate location was considered because originally I had the gate in a location that didn't allow to keep the garbage doors, and I didn't realize that they would be important to keep, and so I was able to relocate the gate so that we could keep those garbage doors, and that was reflected in our new proposal. I could go through all of the elevations, but I stand for questions.
Board members, do you have questions of Mr. Martinez at this time?
And I'm sorry. Joseph Carnes had given you some drawings that show what the house would look like behind the wall from the garden, and we're hoping that even though the house is taller than what is there now, it is appropriate, and it keeps the flavor of the vernacular house intact. And I think Joseph would like to say some words.
But before he does, Richard,
Yes.
I have some questions for you. And probably this has been covered, but just so that everything is clear to us. How many windows are being proposed to be changed, and are those openings going to be changed as well?
All of the windows in the main house are proposed to be changed, and openings on the existing primary facades are not proposed to be changed, except for in 2 cases, and those are addressed in our exceptions.
So all of the windows, except in the primary facades, you are changing 2 windows.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're changing all of the windows. Right. All of the windows are changed. But we're not changing the openings in the primary facades, except in 2 cases on elevation, I think it's 11. I think that's elevation 11. So it's on the bottom drawing that you see on the screen on the far right-hand side. So you see that there is that window that is and door that is now in place, and we're proposing that it just be a window, and then on the other side of the room, there would be another window that matches that.
And what are you proposing to the wall?
As you can see on that wall, are you talking about that wall? Yes? We're proposing that we close up the door, that we change the windows, and that we raise the ceiling, because that's the wall of the rooms that have very low ceilings behind them. So we're proposing that we raise the parapet so that we can raise the ceilings as well.
Any questions or comments before Mr. Martinez gives it to Mr. Carnes? It appears not. Mr. Carnes, please come forward.
Thank you, Chair Rios, members of the board. Joseph Carnes, 125 Lincoln, Suite 221. Initially, I handed out to you a rendering of the south facade, which is the subject of the 2 exceptions requested for the main house. And on the back, I took a photo this morning of that same general perspective. I tried to text this information to Member Katz. I was given a phone number. I don't know if it got through to him, but we're trying to communicate the information. I don't know if Mr. Katz received it, or if he can give a cell phone number, I'm happy to text the photos to him.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're here tonight. I'll be brief. I'm going to really address the exception criteria. We're here on behalf of the owners, Zach Leonard and Julia Platt Leonard, who are unfortunately out of the country. They appreciate your consideration tonight. As Richard mentioned, we have worked with Daniel Schwab and then with Carly over the last couple of months to refine and hone the project. We've reduced both the number and the scope of exceptions, and I think, as Richard indicated, I think we've resulted in a better design all the way around. There are 5 letters of support from neighbors in your packet, including one letter that I handed out from Doug Preston, who lives on the north side, adjacent to the north. Didn't make your packet, but I handed that out to you. I just want to read a couple of excerpts. Stephen Hughes grew up in this house. In his letter in your packet, he says, "I am writing to state my wholehearted support for the refurbishments and improvements proposed by the current owners. Frankly, some of it is long overdue, and it will undoubtedly harmonize more appropriately with the neighborhood." He spent a long time in this house. I don't know exactly how long. Across Plaza Ballantyne on the east side, Ross and Linda Nelson actually own 2 houses, and they stated in part, "Zach and Julia's plans will bring 342 in line with the Pueblo and territorial styles of the other Plaza Ballantyne properties and will beautifully reinforce the historic ambiance of our little compound." And then finally, I see Albert Perez and Robin Perez in the back. They own the property adjacent to the south, which is on Acequia Madre. I think they're going to speak, but they said in part, "The main home has been in need of updating several aspects to match the beauty of the overall property. We believe Zach and Julia have achieved that objective while maintaining the original design and uniqueness of the property." So we've done a lot of neighborhood outreach as well as working with staff on this important project. I appreciate that staff has agreed with most of the exception criteria. I'm going to speak to exception criteria 1 as it relates to the main house and the 2 exceptions we're requesting for the main house. As to that criteria, please keep in mind that the sole question before you is whether the requested exceptions will damage the character of the district, whether they will damage the character of the district. Richard just demonstrated how the proposed design will strengthen the Pueblo and territorial architectural style of the house. We understand and respect the legitimacy of vernacularly built structures in the district and concerns stated in the staff report about homogeneity. However, this design does not, from our perspective, supplant the architectural imprints of the past. Rather, it takes what the HCPI, prepared by John Murphy, describes as the original chicken coop on the west side of the south elevation, which is the focus of the rendering I gave you and the focus of the exceptions. It replaces that chicken coop, old chicken coop, and the particularly disharmonious, again, John Murphy's words, east portion of the south elevation, where the addition is proposed to create the entry on the east side of the property, that both have undivided light windows, as you saw, and it remodels them into a typical Resolana with a territorial style portal and doors opening onto the portal into the nice yard on the south side of the house. This house is clearly, as the neighbors indicated, in need of some TLC, and in particular relocation of the main entry from the west side of the house away from the street over to the east side onto Plaza Valentine. As indicated in our submittals, that is a main driving force behind the design that we've proposed. We believe this design will enhance the character of the district, and ask if the board feels that the design will damage the character of the district, that you help us understand the specific basis for your position, which would need to be memorialized in findings. As to the third exception, having to do with the proposed gate and the contributing wall along the west side of Plaza Valentine, the proposed main entry gate has a utilitarian function to provide a main entry onto the east side of the house. The gate location maintains the existing architectural features, the garbage doors and the hobbit doors just to the south. Richard explained that we revised the design to retain those features. And the wall would not serve, the gate would not serve its purpose by being placed in a different location as referenced in the staff report. I'll finish by saying the applicant did consider other design options as required by the third criteria, the third exception criteria, and determined that a different location and different main entry would not be desirable or really achievable given the existing footprint of the house. There's a bathroom to the north of the proposed entry, and it really limits the ability to provide a main entry on the east side of the house. So I would submit that by considering other design options, the applicant satisfied the third criteria. So with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carnes. Board members, do you have any questions to Mr. Carnes at this time? And do you have any questions for Mr. Martinez? Any clarification? It appears not. Yes, Carly?
I just want to check on Member Katz.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Member Katz.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this project, please come forward. And I am limiting public comment to 2 minutes. I think that's plenty of time.
And Madam Chair, we also have Stephanie Beninato who would like to speak. Your choice on who goes first.
All right, please raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Albert Pettis. I live at 615 Acequia Madre. And we are neighbors to the applicants, and had been following the review process from the very beginning. And I got to tell you that I think it's a consensus of the entire Plaza Valentine neighborhood group that we are in a far better place with the latest version of the design plan. This property is the last of 6 properties on our street that has been in bad need of updating. And we are very pleased that the owners and Richard have come up with a design that is respectful for the neighborhood, the property itself. It's a massive upgrade to what we have been living next to for the last 7 years. And I don't understand why there would be any opposition to the design as proposed. So I am in unanimous approval and endorse the property as is, and I think I speak for most of the neighbors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pettis. Stephanie Beninato, you'll get her on.
Good evening.
Hi, Stephanie. I will go ahead and swear you in. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Stephanie Benenato, P.O. Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm not opposed to raising the height of the roof or ceilings, nor am I opposed really to putting a gate in the wall. I think that that does actually come under making the property more habitable. What I'm really concerned about, and I know that Plaza Valentin has been upgraded greatly over the past several years, is just that it really has gone from a sort of small scale in that the houses were somewhat small scale to being very large scale by people who have been here for maybe not even a decade or less. And 1,100 square feet on that house seems enormously large, especially when you come into the board and ask for a designation of a primary facade and then just go, oh, well, who cares? We'll go forward. We'll get enough people to support us. Again, I would ask the board to look at the criteria to see if it has been met. If it's only the one about conforming to the streetscape, whatever, I guess you'll approve it because the neighbors are telling you that it does. But again, I find it unfortunate that that neighborhood, that little enclave, has actually become an enclave. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to comment? Richard, I do have one final question to ask you. What is the square footage of the existing main house? I know that they are adding 1,186 square feet.
Madam Chair, before we finish public comment, we have that one written comment that wasn't in your packet that I should read in.
Yes, would you do it now that Richard is looking for the square footage?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dear Ms. Picarillo, I'd like to comment on the plans submitted to the Historic Board regarding the proposed renovations at 324 Plaza Valentine. My property at 513 Plaza Valentine directly adjoins the property at 324. We share a common property boundary. The owners shared the revised plans with me, both the original layout of the property and their proposed additions. We reviewed them carefully. I find their plans to be reasonable and in keeping with the historic character of our neighborhood, and would like to recommend that as long as the plans are consistent with the Historic Board's policies, that the Board approve the plans. I'd be glad to offer any further comments or answer questions. With best wishes, Douglas Preston.
Thank you, Carly. And Mr. Martinez.
Yes, the existing heated and portals on the house is 2179 square feet.
Anything else?
I'm sorry, and the addition proposed to the main house is 1,000, I can't read it.
186.
86, yes.
Yeah, so it'll be over 3,000 square feet.
Yes. Oh, and I want to mention that there are only going to be 2 bedrooms in the house. We couldn't fit any more in the house, and that's why we have another bedroom in the casita.
Member Bienvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just perhaps a comment as I'm struggling through this. You know, looking at the photograph as compared to the rendering, it's, you know, a couple things jump out. One is the rendering is showing what is undeniably a more attractive building. The other is that the existing building no longer really exists after the renovation is done. I mean, in essence, it's a new building altogether. So it puts me, at least, in something of a quandary as to the board's designation of this as a significant, or rather contributing structure, as well as the designation of the primary facades, because it clearly would not be, in my mind, contributing any longer after, if these renovations took place, nor would the primary facades really even exist any longer in any recognizable form. So it's sort of as if you had an idea, and I guess it went through some iterations, of a renovation that really got stymied by the board's designation of the contributing status, as well as the, as you pointed out, the multitude of primary facades. And I'm not sure where that leaves us. I mean, in my mind, this cannot be approved given the current designation. I mean, it clearly, I don't see how any of the exceptions would be satisfied. And in essence, it's just saying, you know, we'd rather change the primary facades because we think it would be a better design. On the other hand, I'm willing to reconsider whether or not those primary facade designations were accurate or appropriate in the first instance. So that's the quandary I'm in. I mean, as I say, it's undeniably a better design, but it may as well almost be a new building being constructed in that historic location. That's the presentation we'll make once it's been done.
That wasn't at all the consideration. What I was trying to do, because you're forgetting that the presentation on the street, the new rooms, the 1950s rooms and the 1970s rooms are taller and have a language that we're repeating on that facade. So it's actually we're not trying to obliterate that part of the house. We're trying to match the house that does remain. So you're not looking at the elevations of on the street that were also categorized. One of them facades was actually categorized as a primary facade, and that's what we are trying to match.
I mean, to me, clearly, if this is a significant structure, then the south facade would be the most obvious one. If you had to designate one facade as being primary, would be the most obvious one to consider, as staff did and as the Higbee does. I think the Higbee does. I'm not sure if he actually addressed the primary, but that is a really dramatic change, and I don't think you're picking up anything other than just pure territorial design elements. I don't think you're picking up something from the vernacular house there, are you? With the French doors and the territorial style portal?
Yes, we are. We're
Okay.
making the south end of the house match the north end of the house.
Okay, so the north, maybe I should just see the north end, because I didn't really remember that the north end had a portal in that design.
In our proposal, Carly?
But the south facade is really, that's where the chicken coop was originally, if it was a chicken coop, correct? So it's natural that that's the oldest part as well as the most handmade vernacular part of the house. So I'm not sure that changing it to match other elements would actually be appropriate anyway.
Well, that's from the side, but you can show that one. That's from inside the gate. I mean, it's inside the wall. So it's something like that we're keeping. That elevation we're keeping, and that's more in line with what we're proposing for the rest of the house.
Well, I would just disagree with that this rendering is in line with that elevation. At any rate, those are my comments. I think that I could not find that the exceptions are met or that the house would still be contributing if these renovations were approved, but I certainly would be willing to reconsider some of those earlier designations.
Yes, Carly?
Member Katz also has his hand up.
Member Katz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Member Bienvenu. I am wondering why this house was designated primary and why the facades were contributing and why the facades were designated primary that were. I think that the design that Mr. Martinez has presented to us is a much more attractive house. I can understand why the neighbors would like that it go through, and I would support the application with the proviso that the house status be adjusted to non-contributing. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Katz. I don't think that we can do that this evening. I mean, it's, we have to, that would have to be addressed and publicized if we're going to downgrade a property that has a contributing status. Yes, Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sympathetic to the applicant's articulation of the difficulty of proposing changes to this property given the facade designations. I think the previous board member comments really kind of hit the nail on the head as far as what the critical issue is here with the number of facades. And I guess that's really the thing that I'd like to drill down on just a little bit. I'm not sure that in designating facades, the board was clear as to what makes this house special. The facade designation and the discussion and the presentation by Daniel, because he was managing that case at the time, was looking for breadcrumbs. You know, does this window match this one in dimensions? What can we see as relationships? And a lot of things were designated primary because they were old, or because we saw these kind of mysterious relationships, or those were presented. I think the board should have been in a place where we, and staff, where we could be much more clear about what is special about the house and much more precise in a designation of a facade primary, or the features, the contributing features that make the house special. There's been a lot of discussion both in terms of the board and in terms of the public comment about the palatability of this house, of the current design, of the upgrades, of how all the other houses on the street were already improved, and this is the last one that needs to be improved. And I find that very uncomfortable. I understand that, you know, people have a right to fix problems with the house, to make historic structures in the historic district livable, to make changes that really allow them to live in the historic districts, and for us to have a working district and not just a museum that's kind of trapped in amber. But I think neither the board nor the application really recognizes what is truly special about the house. Some things are fortunately left, that portal that's separate from the house, the wall in front of the house, some remnants of the carport are left in the design, but I think that's kind of by accident. I would favor, well, I would favor greater clarity. If this house is to be contributing, that the division and this board better articulate what about this house needs to be kept and what can change. I'd like the applicant to be clearer about what's beautiful and what's nice about this house and follow from that board decision. But I think given what's transpired, I think that's a lot to ask the applicant to kind of go through a whole other redesign. The design we see before us is fine. Is it the most sensitive response to what I find attractive about the house? No. Is it the most sensitive response to the kind of vernacular that's evolved over time in Santa Fe? No. Is it a little bit, is it a lot of gentrification? Yes. That's where I'm at the design, but I don't think this board or the division gave the correct direction in the beginning. One other point, and I apologize for rambling, all of those circumstances aside, I don't know why a design that would follow our district standards would be reduced to non-contributing, assuming that those design features contribute to the district. I'm having a little trouble understanding why there would be a full downgrade as a result of a design approved by this board and by this division. That shouldn't happen. We should be approving things that allow buildings to maintain their status. Thank you.
And in reference to your comments, so you feel that what is being presented this evening is acceptable, but
given the direction that we've provided,
it would probably, the property would have to be downgraded.
I'm not saying that it would be downgraded.
You're thinking that it still would hold contributing status?
It could.
Any comments, Member Larson? I think the power's back on. So, Member Larson, were you going to say anything?
Yeah, I have just a couple of comments, just in regards to the exception criteria. I think, the way that this project has been framed, I think, maybe it doesn't indicate or represent, the appreciation of the vernacular style. And I think staff's response has addressed this very well, acknowledging that vernacular homes are a very integral part of Santa Fe's landscape. And when we select, a design that's very driven by style, yes, it's very appealing, and it's an effort to sort of, as Anthony had said, it's an effort to improve, or in other words, gentrify the neighborhood. So I guess that's the only issue that I have, is the way that this presentation has been framed as sort of an active improvement through, beautifying architecture. And I think, one of the challenges we're facing right now is that, to capture the vernacular character of this building, I think we did it in a very piecemeal way in designating several primary facades. And I think that in that we've sort of lost the actual character of this house. I don't know that we've completely captured it. And the character really is that, walk through time and sort of, small projects that were done throughout the years. We have sections from the 40s, 50s, and 70s. So, I think it makes sense logically to attach to the territorial elements of the original vernacular building, and to sort of take that design fully into, a style. So I think, in our efforts to try to capture the vernacular character of this building, as Member Guida had said, I don't know that we were extremely clear in capturing the truly character-defining elements of this building, whether it was, the full, architectural profile and sort of circulation around this building. We just selected based on the fabric, which is sort of what can get us into trouble, I think. When we're very focused on the materials, we can lose the sense of the bigger picture. So I think that's what's making this decision really difficult.
It appears that Mr. Eddy wants to make a comment.
Madam Chair, Member Katz's hand has been up for a while, and I believe we closed public comment.
Member Katz, did you want to say something further? Okay, we can't hear you. Unmute. Still cannot hear you. Hold on a minute.
It may be our audio with IT. Let me go check.
Hold on, Frank. Let's see if we have an answer.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. We can hear you.
Good. I think that we're all puzzling over the problem of vernacular versus something that more closely meets the style criteria, and that we didn't do perhaps a good, thorough job on this. I think where we need to do, I don't see how we could possibly approve this tonight. And I think what we need to do is postpone it and notice it for perhaps a status change or primary facade change along with the design. And it may be that the end result is that we decide that while this design is pretty, it doesn't preserve enough of the house that we think should be preserved. Or maybe we decide that, yeah, this house has a wonderful history, and I remember the discussions. I mean, Steve used his family living there for so long, and the interesting addition on the north side. All of that is quite intriguing, but I'm not sure architecturally that we came to the right result. And so, rather than prolong the agony tonight, I do suggest that we postpone in order that we can do a more thorough job for this property and the property owners.
Thank you, Member
Thank you.
Katz. John Eddy.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Eddy, P.O. Box 845, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Tesuque, New Mexico. A little confusing out there. Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. I appreciate the patience that you're applying here. And this is a conflict between, I'll put it in grosser terms, gentrification versus the vernacular. Essentially, that's what we're looking at here. Not making a judgment, but that's kind of what I see happening. I do think that it is very confusing that the primary facades were chosen as they were, and I think maybe there wasn't really the right amount of diligence or judgment in that process. I watched you consider this over the time when you did it, and I know you were careful about it, but this has thrown us into a situation where it is confusing for everyone. I want to point out, in the big picture of things, Plaza Valentine is a very important piece of Santa Fe property because of Kate Chapman. Now, I know that some of this property perhaps was used as a chicken coop by her, and maybe it's not attributed to her, but the overall view of this neighborhood as a microcosm of our history is very, very important because of Kate Chapman. So what you cannot do is allow things to happen in this microcosm which not only downgrade a specific property, but also may contribute to the downgrading of the status of the adjoining residences on Valentine. So I appreciate your being very careful. I urge you to postpone this. I think it's the right thing to do. Procedurally, I'm not sure how you reckon with that, but I think that you need to revisit, if possible, some of these facades and try to work into a compromise that does respect the vernacular on this property. Thank you.
Thank you, John. There appears to be another person wishing to speak.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robin Pettis, and I live at 615 Acequia Madre. That is, my husband spoke already. I've talked to Stephen Hughes extensively about this property. First of all, his parents were two hippies. And so they added on to this house just hodgepodge, threw windows together, whatever they could afford at the time. So that's why the house is the way it is. It is a very unlivable house. Sure, it may be 2,000 square feet or whatever it is, but if you look at the house, if you've been through the house, it has the one bedroom, a bathroom that's off there, the living room's this big long, and then the kitchen is this just stuck together. They did everything on a shoestring and they just put it together. The wall wasn't even there at one point because Stephen told me they used to drive dump trucks in that yard. So, I mean, we make that a primary facade, but at the same time, it's not like it's an 1800s house. I live in Kate Chapman's house. And so, you know, Richard did an unbelievable job of doing the architectural work in that house. And I think that he has taken this house from something that was just thrown together by a bunch of hippies and making it something that's going to be absolutely beautiful. And you think there's 1,000 square feet, but that's on 1/3 of an acre. So it's a huge lot. It has the room to do an expansion. And yes, like this gentleman said, we need to keep the flavor there, but at the same time, this house needs these repairs. It is falling down. There were several people that looked at it and said, this house isn't worth saving. Is that what you guys want? For these people to get frustrated and walk away and just let the house go? Because I think that's what could happen. So please reconsider. These people are trying to save this structure, but at the same time, it had no, whether it's territorial or whatever. These people just threw it together. That's why Richard's saying every window in the house is different because they just bought whatever they could and put it in. What they weren't thinking about whether it looked appropriate for the area. So please reconsider. These people have put time and money into it, and they need to move forward with this. They don't need to wait another month. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Everyone, thank you for your comments. I do feel that I have to say that the designation, as we all know, is presently contributing, and there are many facades that are primary as stated, and in my opinion, I do not vote, except in case of a tie, but in my opinion, I don't think that we can go forward, sorry, applicants and Richard, because we do have the house is contributing. Maybe that the designation needs to be revisited. And I don't know if the designation, if it is revisited, if it's going to be non-contributing or still be contributing with different facades. I don't know. But there were many comments that were said this evening, and yes, I agree with many of the comments that were said this evening. For instance, vernacular architecture, as this last lady spoke, oh, it's just a hippie house. Trust me, I live in the area. People are buying those houses, even if they're hippie houses, left and right. And vernacular architecture in that area is gone, gone, gone. Because new people are coming in and wanting to upgrade. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but that's what is happening in that area. So, with my comments being said, I will entertain a motion from the board.
Madam Chair, one comment before we go for a motion. I think the board is mostly heading in the right direction in identifying the issue and revisiting the status and the designation of facades. I think that's a good thing to do. I think given what's transpired, the point that has just been made in public comment that a lot of money has been spent based on direction that has been given by the City of Santa Fe, by this division, and by this board, I think we are obligated to, provide, as we often do, in cases where we're asking for a change to the application, clear direction. I would hate to see this applicant come back, open up again the idea of designating facades, designating status, and having a totally different outcome, which would force a redesign. I'm very uncomfortable with that. Applicants are entitled to spend money and move forward on an application with a professional, knowing that the information that's provided by the city is trustable. I'd like whatever motion is made to address that concern, that in this motion there's a clear pathway for there to be a general acceptance of the design that we saw tonight.
I will, yes, Carly, did you have something? No?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, I will entertain a motion, please. I'll give you 10 seconds to think about it. We have 4 members, and one of you needs to make a motion. Member Katz, are you ready to make a motion?
I raised my hand.
Okay.
I would move to postpone this case to the first meeting in August and add to the application or notice a possible downgrade of the status, a possible change in the primary facades. I recognize the virtue of the vernacular style. Some vernacular buildings are less worthy of preservation than others, and it may be, and I slightly disagree with Anthony, who I can understand the desire to hold on to the design that Richard has done because it's darn nice. And I can understand that Perez's desire to have that go forward, because I'd rather look at that design than what is there now. But I am conscious of the concern of, yeah, rich people move in, they want bigger houses, they want them to look fancier and nicer, and therefore we lose the vernacular houses. All of that needs to be considered, I think, at another meeting, and therefore I have moved to postpone to allow that discussion to occur.
Is there a second to this motion?
Larson seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenu,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Forgive me, I'm not entirely clear what we're moving on. Are we moving on a postponing the case and advertising a status review?
Yes.
Then I'll vote yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Okay, so we will see you again on the first week in August. Okay? Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair Rios, we need to state the specific date on the record. That will be August 9th.
August 9th. Thank you. The last case under old business is located at 610 Don Gaspar. May we hear that case, and that is Carly's.
Okay, navigate down to it. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is case number 2022-005446 HDRB. It's located at 610 Don Gaspar Avenue. The structure, the property has several structures on it, but tonight we are just hearing about the main house, which is significant to the Don Gaspar area historic district. And we are looking at, I've only included the pictures of the facades that we were talking about for this remodel case. There are exceptions requested in this case. So the first part of this remodel impacts this porch, which we, the applicant is proposing to enclose as a bit of a sun porch with windows. With a recessed, so just make note of the porch entry here because the enclosure is recessed by a few feet there. Okay. Here is a picture of the corner of that porch, and then notice the north portion here. There are two windows there. This is, for context, this is the corner of the house. This is the street corner, and we're standing out on Don Gaspar there. Here are a few old photographs that show, and a nice little diagram that shows the evolution of the house. But the porch that we see here is historic, and as it is significant, all facades are considered primary. We're looking at Santa Fe Avenue and Don Gaspar. Okay, so here are the floor plans, existing and proposed. This floor plan only addresses the enclosure. So you're seeing the windows there, and the dashed outline is the change that is proposed. And that is that little recess over on the right side with the door pushback. Okay, the other main portion of this application is the sunken patio, this essentially addition to a primary facade. So we have steps that go down and steps that go down to an entryway that would enter a basement. Okay. And just make note of the retaining walls right here, and then a retaining wall that is curved here. Okay. Here are the elevations, the east elevation there that show the enclosure. And then here are the, or here is rather, the north elevation with the stairs that go down. So what we're seeing is an infill of two of those small windows. The windows here, which are added, these down here that are true divided light. The panel, 3-panel door here. These are essentially half columns, but they are supporting a portal, or rather a porch. That is in the wrong, that's the wrong style. But the porch here over top. Here's a little bit of the south elevation. And here's some renderings that help really better understand the drawing. Just note that the roof line of this, or of the porch, sits at the datum of the concrete, or rather stucco finish exterior. Okay. And this is what we see in a little bit greater detail. Okay. All right, and just for the board's ease of making a motion, again, each of the proposed exterior alterations are itemized out in such a way that to make for a very clear motion. So, okay. With that said, staff finds that all exception criteria have been met. I will note that several design options were considered, so that may be part of the discussion tonight. Staff recommends approval as it complies with the general design standards and the Dongus-Far Area Historic District Standards, which are 14-5.2H. I can either stand for questions or go ahead and turn it over to Mark Hogan, our applicant.
Okay, if you'll just stay there for one little minute. So this property has gone through many evolutions. My question to you is, the different changes that have taken place, are those all within historic times?
No, Madam Chair. The changes to the main house are mostly all within historic time periods. Now, there are other changes on the property because there is a casita, there is a tree house. The tree house.
But I'm just referring to the main house. My comments are to the main house. Because this started out as a one-story house.
Yes, they are. I'm going to go back to that little diagram.
And if you have the dates right handy, can you tell us when it was the one-story?
1920s, and I believe by the time we get to 1948, that's between 1948. I've lost it in my notes here. Hold on. It's in the 1930s, rather. Sorry for the delay. So just after 1930 is when it went to second story. There were also some changes, other additions in the 1930s on the south end, and then, or rather, yes, the south end. And then we also have some porches added in 1948. Then it rather stabilized from there. The rest of the property had changes to the walls and treehouse, like I mentioned, that went through the board and between the 1990s and 2000s.
And could you put up the elevation for the north elevation on that proposal? I'm just trying to be very clear on what is going to be seen, what is going to be publicly visible.
Do you want the north elevation of the photograph or the drawing?
Well, we're seeing it right here. So Carly, explain to us exactly what is going to be seen there.
So if you are standing on the street,
Mhm.
the wall is maybe a little bit above my eye height. So that is of note. So if you're a little taller, you might see a little bit. But the sunken portal extends out by, go back up here. Do you have the, that's what I thought. So 6.5 to 7 feet. And so then you have that retaining wall. So it's a rather narrow space, but then you have the portal that covers over the top here and kind of masks that out. There is that little bump out, that curved retaining wall, so it kind of makes for a narrow visual if you are standing on the street and happen to be, or are likely or taller than if you're more like 5'11".
And in reference to the portal or to the proposed changes, you feel that that is something that could be easily removed?
So the windows are pretty, they're in kind, I mean, not in kind, but like they're true divided light. They are very similar to the windows that are there. They are very sensitive. They're sensitive enclosure, and the proposal is to do it in such a way that it could be removed at a future date. And that's really what our code requires, that if it were to go back to its original state, that those changes could be just pulled out. That's very similarly, one could infill this with dirt and just take off the portal. It is an addition, though, it is technically an addition to a primary facade, especially due to the fact that porch, I keep calling it a portal, I'm used to being in the downtown east side, so excuse me, but that shed roof line does go up onto that facade. So with as it's done sensitively, with its removal and infill of dirt, what you would see that change being is the infill of those windows, those little basement windows, really, as being something that hedges more on a more permanent change. So.
Thank you, Carly. Any other clarification questions? It appears not. Applicant or applicants, please come forward.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Mark Hogan, P.O. Box 23837, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87502.
Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appreciate your time this evening, as well as your dedication to the community and continuing to this service. The two pieces of this project that we're going to present tonight, there are kind of two separate pieces. It's really the change on the north facade, and I would like to explain that one first because it's easier. Both of these projects are designed to make the house more usable for the Comas family. They've looked at a couple of different methods of expanding space to provide more space to their family over the years, including they got approval from the H-Board for an addition to the second floor a while back, but did not do that for a number of reasons, costs, and I think some health of some of the family members. So they are continuing to look for ways to make the house usable for their family without running afoul of the historic designation. And so the need for additional space, we're looking at by actually going down. There's about 1,250 square feet of crawl space that is excavated already out to about 3 feet. And the idea was to expand the basement downstairs by excavating some of the crawl space. So in order to do that, we're proposing the opening on the north side so that we have a method to be able to access the basement to do the excavation and then add windows and doors to provide light into the 3 rooms that are on the north side of that basement area. So those changes will allow up to 1,250 additional square feet for them to use inside their house. The second component is the enclosure of the portal, and that one's a little bit more difficult. I wanted to explain that one second. The porch is obviously a beautiful part of the house and something that the Comas family have used actively over the years. Peter Comas was assaulted on his property and shot and left for dead. And since then, it's been very difficult for them to use the front porch just because of anxiety and things. They'd like to get back to that. So this enclosure, we feel like will restore some of the usability of that important part of the house. I want to emphasize that all of the porch enclosure is being done sensitively so that the attachments won't interrupt or interfere with the existing structure, so everything could be removed at a later time. We've tried to be carefully detail the work so that it integrates with the existing porch design and doesn't create any anomalies. We want it to blend well with the neighborhood as well as with the existing house. The changes to the north facade we felt were very minimal, especially given the elevation. They only, the very top of that roof cover for that patio is only going to be like 3.5 to 4 feet above the grade. And the reason for that cover is just because of it's on the north facade, we wanted to provide a way to prevent snow and ice from building up down there during the winter months so that it would be usable. But we also felt like it was a very minimal change to that facade and really just the area above 4 feet up will remain as it is today. So Mr. Comas is present and also would maybe like to speak briefly on the importance of these 2 projects to Peter and his family.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Peter B. Comas, and my address is 610 Don Gaspar Avenue. Madam Chair Rios and honorable board members, thank you for hearing us today. And I want to thank the staff from Historic for coming out, and thank you so much for your support on this. I do appreciate that. I've lived in the family home for 58 years, barring 1 year when I lived in Greece and 2 years when I lived in Los Angeles. I'm like the second generation. My parents bought the house in '64, and I've inherited the house. I took care of my late mother for probably the last 15 years of her life in the house, and that's one of the reasons why we didn't do the remodel. That we got unanimous approval for the upstairs addition from the Historic Board 20 years ago when I was first married to Dorinda. My wife and son are here, by the way. Anyway, we didn't do it. My mother's health was failing, and we would have had to move out of the house, etc. And I took care of her for probably the last 15 years of her life, so that's why we just didn't want to upset her and do all of this earth moving and all that. So, but I don't plan on going any place. They tried to kill me at one time. It was pretty awful, to tell the truth, and I still have ramifications from it. I have PTSD and I have chronic pain in my left leg. But this family house is going to continue on to my son and to my grandchildren in the future, and so we've been there. I'm very proud of the house. I have historic landscape that I'm really proud of. I'm proud of my apricot trees and all the other trees that my father planted and that I planted and that my mother and I planted, and that I understand Bishop Lemie planted the apricot tree, so there you go. One thing was brought up about the north elevation and about the wall. I'm 6'7", and I can't see over the wall. The wall is a little bit taller than me on a certain area on that north side. But if you do look in the gate, then you'll be able to see it. But I think, with the vegetation and with the way the wall is, it won't be, it'll be hidden from view for the most part. And, I think that's it.
Any questions for the applicant? Yes.
I just have one question. This might be for the architect. But the material that is, sort of under those rafter tails and where the support columns are, is that going to be wood used? I don't see it labeled on the proposed east elevation drawing.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, Madam Chair, Board Member. The elevation that you saw, and even this one, shows the indication of like a pilaster on either side of those doors, and that's something that Carly and I talked about, and we thought maybe that was too much an attachment to the existing, so what we're really looking at is just doing a ledger for attaching those trellis pieces to the house and not bringing brick down as you saw in that one elevation.
Yeah, I apologize. I might have not been clear. I was asking on the front elevation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's the, you see the rafter tails over the new windows, and thank you, Carly. And then the wood components, I assume they're wood, the columns.
Yes.
Will it just be a wood frame around that with the windows, those like band windows?
It will. The transom windows work within the space that's provided by the columns, where it goes from a masonry detail to a wood detail. So that'll be trimmed in there carefully, so there won't be, the windows won't be jogging in and out, but the trim will be.
Okay, and the trim will be white?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Member Guida.
Thank you. Two questions about materials and detailing. The roof over the basement recess, the roof material there, what will that be?
The application says corrugated, and we were thinking it might be more of a corrugated fiberglass so we could get some light through there. I did some research on some greenhouses that were of that era, and there were glass that was often used in between some of the rafters, so that would even be better. We'd have, if we did like a wire glass between the rafters, that would have a cleaner appearance and get better light than a corrugated fiberglass.
I would wholeheartly agree with that. And then the second question, and sorry, now I've got a third question. And the material of the rafters under this roof, these are painted wood?
Yes.
And then last question, you need a guard for the stair. How do you plan to address the fall hazard there?
We'd like to actually, we're not showing landscaping in this plan, but we would like to have landscaping go along the edge of that retaining wall, and within that have a pipe rail to protect anybody from falling down.
Okay. And what would that look like, the pipe rail?
Just like 2-inch tubing that would just be elevated. We'd kind of like it just to blend into the shrubbery, actually.
Okay. I think it's a critical component of what we'll see. I think you may be required to do something a little bit more closed than an open pipe rail, but it's something that would be consistent with the other ironwork on the house. I mean, it doesn't have to be wrought iron per se, but something that would be a black railing that would kind of disappear as you're describing behind shrubbery. That would be great.
Yep, that's certainly our intention.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments at this time? Anyone from the public wishing to speak? I see Mr. Eddy has been sworn in, and he's going to make a comment. This is a significant house. That means all the facades are primary.
And we do have two others ready to comment on soon.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. It's hard to speak up in a case like this. I have immense respect for the Comas family. I want to state that at the outset. And so this does not impact that at all for me personally. I think the north addition is something that can be considered. I like Board Member Guida's suggestion that some decorative ironwork on that wall would help immensely to not only hide the addition, because I think the addition is a stretch on that facade, but I think it can be handled in a very tasteful way and would enhance the neighborhood. I would encourage the board to ask them to submit a design showing their plans for that, because I think it's very important. I have to say that the enclosure of the portal on the eastern facade is very troubling to me, especially on this house. And I think that there's a huge impact on the streetscape with addition of that architectural change. So I just need to state that. So I'd like you to be very careful with that, because this is a very significant house, not only from the deep history, but also from the history of the Comas family being there themselves for these generations. Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. For the people, is it Member Katz? Did you want to comment, Member Katz?
Have we finished with public comment?
We have not. We've got two more, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I'll wait.
Okay, thank you.
I have Stephanie Benenato. I'm going to allow, get her unmuted.
Stephanie Benenato, P.O. Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I would like to say, too, that this has to do with what I see as a historic house, a significant house. I have been mostly friends with Peter Comas for quite some time. And so I know that he will take it in that spirit. I have less trouble with enclosing the eastern facade, the porch. However, I would be concerned if there was a door right there. I mean, it's such a small space that I don't really think there's enough room to have two doors. And if you were going to allow a door, I think it should totally mimic the existing door in terms of the design of that door, because it is rather, it is unique in, as far as I can tell. I think you can definitely see what's going on the north side, because the gate is there, and it's a fairly large gate, and there is a lower wall on that side. You can't rely on vegetation, so what you're going to see is a wall with fencing, and I guess if it's glass roofing, that it won't be quite as noticeable, and that's in case shrubs die or never get planted. I think it's a big stretch on a significant house to allow this kind of addition. It definitely changes that facade. I mean, I don't care if you can see it or not, it actually significantly changes the facade. And it's such a big house, and it's not a large family, and there are other structures. So I just really wonder about the necessity of doing like the doors and all the windows, because you can say you can return it, but you can't. You have these big holes where nothing used to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more. And they're showing up as Samsung, so have them introduce themselves. Okay, I'm asking you to unmute, if you could, and this is Samsung SM-S5901U. Please unmute yourself, and you'll be able to speak. You'll need to unmute yourself for the public comment. Okay, one more time. We've got someone with their hand raised and on Zoom for public comment. If you would like to speak, I'm pressing the Ask to Unmute button, so please unmute yourself, and you'll be able to speak. Otherwise, we'll likely need to move on.
No response?
No response.
Well, let's hear from Member Katz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have real problems with this. It makes me wonder why we designate anything significant. I think certainly the north facade is just jarring to the appearance of the house. And that wall is not so high that if I'm walking down that sidewalk, and people do walk in that district a lot, I would be looking at a complete change to that facade. And I don't see how we can allow that. I feel similarly about the porch, that it is such a distinctive aspect of that house. I appreciate the job that Mark has done in the design, and it does seem to me that it fairly successfully keeps the feeling of the porch, and knowing that it's removable. I think that meets an important part of the code. I think it's better than the other, but again, I wonder why bother giving significant status to a house if we're going to just sort of ignore that and change it. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to comment? Or yes, Member Larson.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually really appreciate the sensitivity that's been given to this, these, two components of the proposal. First of all, I think that adding a reversible enclosure to the front porch is appropriate. Even if the house is significant, I think it's still conveying the architectural profile, and it's still in line with the stylistic designation of this house as a craftsman bungalow. I also think that, we all agree on that component. I think for the addition leading to the basement, I actually appreciate that there is, more thought that's going to be applied for, bringing more light into the home and still screening it in some capacity. I don't think, that it's detracting from the overall appearance of the house. I think, with even significant homes, we have to let them evolve. We have to allow, some flexibility in terms of, accessing this lower level from the garden space. I think that's, kind of interesting for especially a home of this style, of the craftsman style. That outer-inner relationship and circulation is really critical to that. So I just, I think that this has been done sensitively, and even if it is publicly visible, I think, the intent of the owner is to, continue to utilize this house, and I think that this is a very minor change that, does not detract from the streetscape and may even enhance the overall landscape component of this house.
Thank you, Member Larson. Any other comments? Member Benvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm also in agreement that I think that these changes have been justified within the application for exceptions, partially due to the unique circumstances of the occupant, and also the need for additional space. And it appears that the board already at one time approved a substantial change to the property to allow additional space, and it's hard for me to imagine that this solution would be any greater of an intrusion on the integrity of the house than whatever that was, although I haven't seen the plan. I think it would be important to screen, that there be a condition of screening of the north alteration with some kind of vegetation, in addition to the railing, which is obviously required by code. And as far as the enclosure of the porch goes, I think I don't personally think that that's going to substantially change the significance of the structure and its architectural detailing. It certainly makes it more livable. It's consistent with what others have done in similar circumstances, and I think the house will retain its integrity with that. And the fact that it's removable is all the more reason, I think, for approving that. So I would be in favor as well, with the condition that there be screening of the north face.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, I'm
Madam Chair, I'm in agreement. I would also point out that the house is probably significant because of the history of the individual who lived there, not necessarily its qualities of Santa Fe style. And for that reason, I think this is appropriate. If it's okay, I'll make a motion.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair Katz has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I take it down. Thank you.
I was just going to say, Anthony, that the house wasn't meant to be Santa Fe style. In this area, we had houses that were, we all know, that are pitch roof and that are brick and that are of this specific style, and that we honor their history for the house itself and for the people that have occupied those homes. And Mr. Comas, I do want to say that we were out there some of us were out there for the field trip, and I do want to compliment you for the way you keep your house. I can tell you have so much pride in that house. The front of the house, the sides, the back of the house, all your fruit trees. And I know that throughout the years you've always kept it up, but I just want to compliment you on that. Yes, Mr. Guida?
Carly has a comment.
Yes, Carly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a request that when the board makes their motion, that the ledger aspect that was mentioned by the applicant also is addressed, because that was an inconsistency in the presentation.
Can do. Case 2022-005446 HDRB 610 Don Gaspar. I move that the board approve the application, find in agreement with staff that the applicant's response to the exception criteria have been met. In addition, I would say that for the buried addition, the north addition, the following needs to be updated by the applicant and submitted to staff for final approval based on board discussion. These items would include a design for or an elevation of the railing, articulating its color and material, the articulation of the ledger against the existing building as the means of attachment for that new doorway cover, and that the sense of what was described tonight was a pergola cover with a wire glass or similar glass roof, and not a fiberglass or acrylic topping to that area. Those things should be submitted to finalize the application. And although it's not part of the things that we usually draw, it should just be noted that that railing would be screened with landscaping.
Larson seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenu?
Yes.
Member Guida?
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
No.
Member Larson.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We are going to move on to new business. And the first case is located at 1500 Canyon Road. It's for a status review. And Carly, may we have the information on this case?
Yes, Madam Chair. So we are looking at case number 2022-005375 HDRB. You will remember this from a few weeks ago. This is 1500 Canyon Road, a significant house on the property with a significant barn. Now, this is actually the last, I misspoke last time, because we do have historic photographs of other structures. This is the last structure that has not had its status designated, rather. And this is the former Mateus Martinez farm with a wonderful history attached to the HCPI. In the staff report, you'll see a little bit of information that we've gone through and we have seen on the main house, which was constructed in the 1890s, excuse me. So this is a non-contributing garage in the downtown east side historic district. And it's set back from the property to the southeast. Highlighted in red here. It was constructed in 1937. In the HCPI, you'll see that John Murphy was recommending this as contributing with a facade that is the one that has the garage doors. As a structure on its own, the last time we were here, I was recommending that we don't look at this for contributing. For several reasons I'll go over in a minute. But the fact that it has a certain relationship to the property and the house itself, and it does give a more diminutive role but supports the rest of the property, is one reason that it can very well be significant, that its age, and that it is in harmony with the house. So while John Murphy is recommending for the doors, the elevation with the doors, which have been widened over time as the primary facade, in adverse saw that the facade that faces the street here, which is the north, gives a gentle slope to the elevation. It's got that punched window, a large massing, and while it is CMU block, and this is one reason I have a harder time contributing on this, because you have certain walls that are CMU. You have you have garage doors that have been widened, but they are adobe, and windows that are slider aluminum. So that makes this a little bit more on the fence, at least my initial assessment of this. But coming around to the fact that we do consider these as very much, and the relevant code citations are a part of this, that although the contributing structure is not unique in itself, it adds to the historic associations or the historic architectural design qualities that are significant for a district. And this particularly does add to the property because of its relationship to the house, yes, how it was used, but its very subtle form and architectural features. That said, its windows would not be, the window itself should not be included in that primary facade designation if you choose to go with the north, or and if you choose to go with the east facade. I'm getting my rights and left and east and west mixed up today. But if you choose to go with the east facade, also those doors are not should be excluded from a designation. I understand if you do not, if you choose not to go with my staff's recommendation. But yes, I'll read the recommendation into the record. Staff recommends that the historic status of the structure be upgraded to as contributing, with the north facade being designated as primary per 15-5.2C. Oh, and here are some lovely historic photographs. And there were these other structures on the property in the past, and sadly are no longer there. We're looking north and south are reversed in the aerial imagery, excuse me. And here is the site plan. And I have also included the elevations and the plans if we need to go through those, but I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Carly. Any clarification questions? Member Bienvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, Carly. Was the barn addressed in your review, or is that not actually on the property?
The barn is on the property. It was designated as significant a few years ago.
Okay, the barn already is significant. This is the only remaining structure that's non-status?
That's correct.
Okay, great, thanks.
So will the applicant or applicants please come forward and get sworn in?
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
William Powell, 1601 Don Gaspar.
Good evening, Will.
Hi, everybody.
What do you have to tell us about this project? Do you agree or disagree with staff's recommendation?
I agree with staff's recommendations. I just want a little clarification on the west facade, the garage doors. I think if I understood correctly, staff is just recommending that the primary facade of the north would be designated as a primary facade. The other three facades would be recommended as just standard facades.
They would be, they are recommended as a contributing building, and staff is recommending for the north facade. And I'm not sure that this was made clear in the staff report, but minus the actual window, but not the window opening, because it's an aluminum slider and not historic.
Yeah, that's great. I'm filling in for Richard, so I had to catch up a little bit on this. But the west facade, I think we understand each other, but those plywood doors, the building used to actually have a larger opening. You guys probably knew that from the literature, from what John had done. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
They were filled in later. But apparently the 1937 Plymouth that was housed in the garage is the reason why it was built. And when it was no longer functional as a garage, that's when they had narrowed that opening on the west facade. I did the core, John, as you guys know, lives in California, so he asked me to do the core samples. And so we have adobe, which likely might be the original wall on the north, and then on the, the south facade is likely the original wall, it's adobe, and all the other walls are CMU, so likely they were replaced at some point. So I'll stand for any questions. But
Questions for the applicant? No questions. So anyone from the public wishing to comment on this case?
We have Stephanie Bedonato, and we still have that Samsung caller with a hand up. But I'm going to go ahead and lower their hand and see if they raise it again. All right, Stephanie Bedonato, if you can unmute yourself.
Yes, I hope you can hear me. Stephanie Bedonato, PO Box 160 Santa Fe, New Mexico. I would agree with staff's recommendation about the north wall being primary and the garage being contributing, in part because of its relationship to the other buildings, but also because it is typical of that time period where it's extremely simple. I do wonder when the opening for the garage doors were filled in, because if it was pre-1972, then perhaps that facade should also be considered historic with, again, the doors themselves not, having to be kept or even replaced in kind. Thank you.
John Eddie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with staff's recommendation that this be upgraded, this structure. If I'm not wrong, this is the last vernacular example of farmhouses intact on Upper Canyon Road. Madam Chair, you might be able to verify that for me. But as such, this property is it's very important to us and our understanding of how people lived in Santa Fe for generations and generations. This shed certainly can be put to adaptive reuse, and while honoring what it is contributing to the flavor and the culture and the understanding of how that property was used over time, can very easily be upgraded without challenging a contributing status. As I believe it, I agree with Ms. Beninato that the doors can certainly be, if not replaced strictly in kind, because I don't think plywood doors is really going to add anything to anybody's life up there. But there's a way that this shed can be remodeled in a very tasteful way, maintaining its connection to the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment on this particular case? Let's see, Carly, if that person is available now.
They haven't raised their hand back.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I think.
Okay, thank you. Member Katz, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I likewise agree with staff's recommendation, and I think that Carly did a very good job in describing how this enhances the whole property, and that it sort of supports the beauty of the main house by not distracting from it, by being a shed. And I completely agree that the north facade should be primary, and that leaves, I think, room for modification of the west facade, south facade, to maximize the use of that structure. And I'd be happy to make a motion at the appropriate time.
Hang on. Any other comments or questions of board members? No, you can make a motion, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On case number HDRB number 2022-005507, HDRB at 1500 Canyon Road, I would move to make the status of the garage, upgrade it to a contributing status, identify the north facade as primary, excluding the window itself in the facade, but not the opening. And the reason for the upgrade, I think, is the way that the structure enhances the entire property and goes with the entire property. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Larson seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Bienvenue?
Yes.
Member Guida?
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz?
Yes.
Member Larson?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you, and thank you, Will. The last case this evening is located, yes. Oh, yes.
Just as the applicant's leaving, I just wanted to say that both in this case and 1520, I think the the owners of these properties are really to be commended for their stewardship of both of them, because these could have easily been coming before us with very dramatic changes. They're valuable properties. These are old vernacular buildings, and in both cases, I think there's been a great deal of respect shown by the current ownership to maintain those very important properties that we've been identifying. So thank you for that.
Thank you for your comments, Member Benvenue, and I agree with them. Really, as I said earlier, and as Mr. Eddy has stated, vernacular architecture on the east side, it's almost bye-bye. People are moving in and they want bigger houses and they want more luxurious houses, and it's sometimes difficult for some people to see what can possibly happen with vernacular architecture. And I even hear, well, that's what I will say in reference to that. We will hear the next case, which is located at 275 East Alameda Street. This is the St. Francis School.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board, remaining applicants. I am pleased to present this case to you. This is also a very, very important and special building to New Mexico. This is the St. Francis Cathedral School, known as that. It's also been used for a charter school, and it has been empty for a while. This is at 75 East Alameda, which is at the corner of East Alameda and Paseo de Peralta. The building is about a 40,000 square foot structure, two-story, built in 1948 and designed by John Gamin in the Spanish Pueblo Revival style. It's known historically as the St. Francis Cathedral School and later the School for the Arts, as I mentioned. It has been empty since 2019. It sits prominently at the corner, the northwest corner of Paseo and Alameda. In 2010, the HDRB upgraded its status from non-contributing to contributing to the downtown and east side historic district and designated the south and east elevations as primary facades. The case meeting minutes from the April 13th, 2000 hearing state that. The applicant has provided an updated historic cultural properties inventory sheet for consideration, which is in your packet. New HICP describes in detail the architectural and construction history. According to the HICP, it is not listed on the national or state historic register. It is listed on the State Historic District, City of Santa Fe, and currently contributes to the local downtown and east side historic district. And if you didn't follow all that, I think Sven Larson, when she returns, could probably shed more light on that as well, if not Carly too. The two-story building features institutional standard steel casements, its classroom windows across its entire east and west facades. These are the presentation drawings from 1948, just to show it in sketch form. It's not much changed. It was built according to these plans. This is the expanse of classroom windows that characterize it on the east and the west facades. Also, per the HICP, the classroom wings, long elevations, are arranged as 4 bays, divided vertically with concrete spandrels, holding 21 light steel frame windows at each level. The bays are set back from the wall by 14 inches and set off by battered buttresses punched with deep and narrow windows. See more close-up of that. Spandrels have concentric square design. A cast concrete ornamental lintel tops the upper windows. And a bell tower sits atop its entry on the south end. There you can see the bell tower. Building is constructed of clay tile with stucco and a flat roof with parapets. The windows are various sized steel casements. The building underwent alterations over the years to accommodate the changing needs of the school. In 1961, a one-story addition of 5,200 square feet was added to its northwest corner. Some minor additions include enclosing a portion of the southwest portal and adding a wheelchair ramp in 2010. Other minor alterations include adding storage rooms on the west side and a freezer enclosure on the southwest portal. Doors are wood and steel, and per the updated Hickby, notably, there are 6 Meme Shop 2-panel wood with upper panel ornamentation. The floor plan is L-shaped. With respect to yard walls, here's more up-to-date drawings. I don't know if you prefer that I leave photographs up, or would you like to look at drawings?
Whatever you have up is fine.
Okay. A low 4 feet high stucco masonry wall extends from the southwest corner along the length of its eastern Paseo de Peralta elevation and turns the corner to the north elevation. This wall, according to the Hickby post dates 1978, inferred that it's not historic. According to Hickby, it was constructed after then. A 6 feet high masonry and stucco yard wall extends along the north elevation's parking lot. This wall is historic. On the south elevation, the wall has multiple heights, with its tallest section averaging 6 feet, stepping down to a much lower and thicker wall. The yard wall in its entirety is considered historic. The applicant requests a review of its historic status and primary facades designation. Staff recommends that the historic status of the structure be maintained contributing. For section 14-5.2C, designation of significant and contributing structures, and adding the historic yard wall along the south elevation as contributing. Staff also reconfirms and recommends the east and south elevations as primary facades. And that concludes my report. I stand for questions.
Thank you very much. I thought I heard you say 2 walls were contributing. You said the south elevation wall. Was there another wall?
Clarification to the staff report, excuse me, Chair, is 2 of the walls are historic, and I referred to the only one of them. The north wall is also historic, and I did not include that in my recommendation here, but I am including it now.
So you are recommending that the north and the south walls are...
The north wall that is on the, it actually extends from the eastern elevation. There's a section of wall that's to the north of the building, connects to the building north. It's a section that's historic. It's where we were today when we walked around to meet Heather.
Okay.
That makes sense. The wall is, that portion is historic.
Thank you. Any other clarification questions? Yes. Member Larcy.
Angela, can you just show us on a site plan or an aerial which walls you're talking about so that we're clear?
Sure. I think I have to go to the aerial. Well, so that elevation, that's the east elevation, shows the non-historic Paseo facing wall. And the wall, there's an opening in it, and then the wall, that wall that's after the opening is historic.
Are you recommending that as contributing?
Yes.
Okay. And the south wall?
All of it, south wall. That's the front of the school.
Yeah.
All the way from the portal, where actually it starts actually after the portal towards the west.
I'm confused. There are walls along the east property edge along Paseo de Peralta. Is all of that in your recommendation?
No, that east wall along Paseo de Peralta was built after 1978.
Okay, so show us on this aerial what you're recommending.
Okay. So we're looking at north is up. You see the classroom wing. north-south. On the street to the east is Paseo de Peralta, and then the street to the south is East Alameda. The wall along Paseo de Peralta, all the way to where it doesn't turn the corner south. It starts at inset from the property. It has a connecting wall to the building, and then it connects out to Paseo. So that is more of a modern wall. It's post 1978. If you continue north, there you can't tell on this aerial. There's a, let's see, I have a, that's actually the south elevation. From the aerial, Carly has just assisted me in highlighting in red the historic portions, which is up here towards the the northeast corner of the building. That portion is historic. The blue portion, which heads south and stops at the building, is non-historic. And then there's no wall in the front of the school, and then it resumes the historic yard wall. Actually, that is part of the historic yard wall that extended all the way around that Catholic
So what you're suggesting is the ones highlighted in orange, correct?
The ones in red, yes.
Yeah, great.
As
Thank
part
you.
of the contributing status.
Thank you. I'm clear.
Any other questions? Yes, Member Larson.
Hey, Angela. First of all, I'm really appreciative of all the information in the packet. The HICP report is really substantial and, really delves into the interesting history of the building. So I guess I just would like a little more clarity behind, why this is contributing versus significant. If you have any answers, otherwise I'll ask the applicant.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think that's what we need to talk about, and it came up at the field trip today. As you know from the HICP, the author of the HICP does not indicate that it warrants a significant status. Mainly, I think, in his reasoning is that it was not one of NEEM's greatest buildings. His rationale is that it borrowed from, was another principal in his firm that worked on institutional projects, and NEEM was, he was commissioned with a lot of those. It actually is very NEEM, and I don't agree with that it doesn't reflect NEEM's conventional presentation of, Pueblo revival and actually kind of territorial style. It's an institution, it's a unique institutional architectural style credited to NEEM and is found, it's noteworthy found in other parts of New Mexico, but in particular the University of New Mexico. I'm glad you asked the question, Member Flynn, because in the HICP, I stated it early, but I'm going to read it again. I'd like to direct you to page, never numbered, but it's page 2 of the HICP, and we go to number 22, box number 22. It says National or State Register. Is this property individually listed on a historic register? The author of this survey says no. If no or unknown, do you think this property is eligible for listing? The author of the survey says undetermined. And the answer to why is C, evaluation of historic status. And that's where we go into the discussion of how this particular HICP drafter believes that this is not, I'm paraphrasing, one of MEME's best. And it actually does possess all of what's there is historic. It was added onto in 1961, just before I was born, and it was it's historic. So I just would like to answer your question in that way, to say that I don't necessarily believe it meets the threshold of significant status, similar to this HICP's author, but it meets the threshold for certainly contributing, and it is an extremely important cultural, institutional building to Santa Fe.
Yeah, I
That
guess
maybe wasn't declared so in 2010.
Yeah, then that's sort of where I was leading to, is this is a really nice, complete HICP report with a lot of research, but the determination is quite unclear, the argument. It could be interpreted in different ways. I think for me, the way that I interpret it is, while it may not be, the pinnacle of architecture in New Mexico, it does have, there is something to say about the sort of rapid post-war development that occurred. So that indicates more to like the actual period of development and the social sort of significance in post-war architecture. And to back that up, you also have some pretty interesting architectural elements that convey that as well. So in my interpretation, I would think that there would be a little bit more clarity needed in the determination. And I guess, as in your professional opinion, you're agreeing that this is not worthy of significant status, and you're basing that decision off of the recommendation of the HICP report?
To clarify, I actually am not basing it off the HICP report.
Okay.
Because I think it's unclear as well. I believe because significant status is the highest, well, not landmark, that would be the highest, but it's it basically says every facade is primary by definition of a significant building. Mm-hmm. And I've had one case before where it was essentially an unchanged complex, and that became significant. This has minor changes to some portions, although the additions are all historic except for the yard wall. And because of that, I see it as meeting the definition of contributing more closely.
So you're saying there's a loss of integrity which would not make it worthy of significant status based on these changes that detract from the overall appearance?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to get more, more of an understanding of what the decision was.
And Angela, I'm going to jump in here.
Thank you for your patience. And that was the last case for this evening. Anything under discussion items?
No, ma'am.
And I do have matters from the board. I was very frustrated with the unsolving of the electronic issues. We really have to get that under control. I think we wasted a lot of time, and I feel bad for the board members, but I feel worse for the people that come here, the applicants that are having to sit there through all of this. So can you please get on?
Yes, Madam Chair. We will be looking for more regular consistency with all of the extra players that is required for a hybrid meeting, which is what we have to do. Occasionally, we're going to have board members attending by Zoom, and we also need to have public attending by Zoom. And I'm reminded on a regular basis of those needs from our public and our staff and other members, so especially applicants who cannot be here in person. So, yes, it's consistency is what.
I wish we could all be here in person. Actually, it would make it easier for all of us, but there might still be computer problems. So, and I understand why we are having the hybrid, because some people just can't make it at certain times. But, yeah, so if you can address that, that would be very good.
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm appreciative of staff's Herculean effort and city staff in general to create hybrid meetings. It's a big deal. The technology, it's to be expected that the technology doesn't work perfectly. My point of view is that it's always going to be imperfect, and that, and I would agree that one or the other is probably easier. Probably the Zoom is probably the easiest one in my view, but we're going through a transition period, and I'd just like to recognize that.
Thank you. Anything else, anybody? Not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Larson moves to adjourn.
Rita seconds.
Thank you. It is 9:10 now. Roll call vote.
Member Bienvenu?
Yes.
Member Guida?
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz?
Yes.
Member Larson?
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you very much, and good night, everyone. Have a nice evening.